10 years of preparations, the emerald ash borer has been spotted in Denver.
A bug smaller than a grain of rice is wiping out America's forests, and scientists cannot stop it. This tiny green beetle is on a rampage, and the numbers are absolutely terrifying. We are talking about over 1 billion trees already gone. It is a key detail that these bugs are almost invisible until the tree is already dead. You won't believe how they actually destroy the wood. And wait, it gets better.
In Asia, emerald ash borer is really only able to attack stressed and dying ash trees.
There is a secret weapon that scientists are releasing into the wild right now, but it might come with a massive caveat that nobody saw coming. Emerald invader turning forests into graveyards. Back in 2002, a group of scientists in Michigan noticed something weird. The ash trees near Detroit were dying at a crazy rate. They were turning yellow, losing their leaves, and then just falling over. When the experts peeled back the bark, they found something that looked like a crime scene. There were tiny, winding paths carved into the wood. These paths were filled with sawdust and waste. At the end of those paths was a tiny beetle, bright green and shiny like a jewel. This was the first time anyone in North America had seen the emerald ash borer. Little did they know, this discovery was just the beginning of a nightmare. This tiny bug comes from places like China and Russia. It probably hitched a ride to the United States on wooden shipping crates. Because it is so small, nobody noticed it at the docks. Once it landed in the Midwest, it found a paradise. See, the United States has billions of ash trees. In some cities, ash trees make up 30 or 40% of all the shade trees on the streets. For this beetle, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet that stretched for thousands of miles. The problem is that American ash trees have no natural way to fight back. In Asia, the trees have evolved over millions of years to survive these bugs. But here, the trees are completely defenseless. The way these bugs destroy a tree is truly terrifying. The adult beetles are not the ones doing the most damage. They just eat a few leaves and hang out in the sun. The real villains are the babies, called larvae. A single female can lay scores of eggs in the cracks of the bark. When they hatch, the tiny worms bore straight into the tree. They go for the most important part, the layer that carries water and food up and down the trunk. As they eat, they create those winding paths that look like snakes under the bark. This is called girdling. It is like putting a tight rope around a person's neck. The tree cannot get water from its roots to its leaves anymore. Basically, the tree starves to death while standing up. In the beginning, people thought they could contain it. They set up zones where you could not move wood. They put up purple traps in trees to catch the bugs. But it turns out, that was a mistake. The beetle was already much farther away than anyone realized. By the time a tree looks sick, the bugs have usually been living in it for 3 or 4 years. That means they have already had plenty of time to fly to the next forest. Fast forward to today, and this bug has been found in 35 different states. It has even crossed the border into Canada. We are now looking at a situation where nearly every ash tree in North America is at risk of being wiped out. That was the moment everything shifted, and now the entire forest ecosystem is starting to crumble. Cereal monster hiding under the bark. Most people do not realize how fast this bug can travel. It can fly a few miles on its own, but it has a secret helper: humans. We are the ones who have been moving this beetle across the country for years. Think about every time someone goes camping and brings a bundle of firewood. Or think about a logging truck moving giant piles of wood from one state to another. A single log can hold hundreds of these tiny monsters. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of the whole crisis. Even though there are big signs on the highway telling people not to move firewood, the beetle keeps showing up in new places. It even reached Colorado and the Pacific Northwest, which are thousands of miles away from where it started in Michigan. When the beetle arrives in a new forest, it starts a timer. Usually, within 8 to 10 years of the first bug arriving, every single ash tree in that area will be dead. We are talking about a 99% mortality rate. That is a higher death rate than almost any other tree disease in history. It is even worse than the disease that wiped out the American chestnut trees 100 years ago. And get this, the beetle does not just go for the old weak trees. It takes out the young healthy ones too. The crazy part is how the forest reacts once the ash trees are gone. Ash trees are a key part of the woods. They provide shade for small plants on the ground. Their leaves are food for hundreds of types of insects. When the ash trees die, all that shade disappears. The sun hits the forest floor much harder than it used to. This allows invasive weeds to grow like crazy and take over. Birds that used to nest in the ash branches have nowhere to go. Even the fish in nearby streams feel the impact. Ash leaves fall into the water and provide nutrients for the tiny creatures that fish eat. Without those leaves, the whole food chain in the water gets messed up. Scientists have spent years trying to figure out why the American trees are so weak. It turns out that Asian ash trees produce special chemicals that make the beetle's stomach hurt or stop the babies from growing. American trees simply do not know how to make those chemicals. It is like the trees are fighting a modern war with sticks and stones. Many are not seeing the truth here, which is that we might be witnessing the extinction of an entire genus of trees in our lifetime. But there is a massive caveat to our survival plans that most people are missing. Trillion-dollar bill for dead trees. The damage is not just happening in the deep woods. It is happening in our backyards and city streets. If you live in a city in the Midwest or the Northeast, you have probably seen crews cutting down giant trees in your neighborhood. This is costing taxpayers a fortune. Removing a single large tree can cost over $1,000. When you multiply that by the millions of trees in our cities, the bill becomes impossible to pay. Some estimates say that the cost of removing and replacing ash trees in urban areas could reach $10 billion over the next 10 years. That is a huge amount of money for a bug that is smaller than a grain of rice. The real kicker is that many people loved these trees. They provided shade for houses, which kept electricity bills lower in the summer. They increased the value of property. Now, those streets look empty and hot. But for some people, the loss is even deeper than money. Indigenous tribes in the United States and Canada have used black ash trees for hundreds of years. They use the wood to weave beautiful, strong baskets that are a huge part of their culture and history. Without these trees, an entire way of life and a piece of human history could vanish forever. People are also worried about what happens to all that dead wood. When millions of trees die at the same time, they become a massive fire hazard. A forest full of standing dead wood is like a giant pile of matches waiting for a spark. In some places, the dead trees are so thick that you cannot even walk through the woods anymore. It is dangerous for hikers and dangerous for the people who live nearby. Local governments are struggling to clear the wood fast enough, but the beetle works faster than any chainsaw. Everyone's obsessed with the big disasters like hurricanes or fires, but this slow-motion disaster is actually doing more long-term damage. It turns out that losing these trees also changes the air we breathe. Trees soak up carbon dioxide and give us oxygen. When 1 billion trees die, that is a lot of carbon that stays in the air. It is a massive blow to the environment that we are only just beginning to understand. Looking back, that was the red flag we should have noticed decades ago. But wait, there's more. Because scientists are now trying something so wild, it sounds like science fiction. Tiny wasps leading a desperate war. Since traditional chemical sprays and heavy metal traps have failed to stop the emerald ash borer, scientists are moving toward a strategy of biological warfare. They have realized that human-made poisons are not enough to save millions of acres of forest. To find a real solution, researchers went back to the beetle's original home in Asia to find its natural enemies. They discovered several types of tiny wasps that act as the perfect biological weapon. These wasps are only about the size of a gnat, and they do not have the ability to sting humans. They are what experts call specialists, meaning their entire lives are dedicated to one single goal: finding emerald ash borer eggs or larvae and destroying them before they can grow. Scientists are now breeding these wasps in massive labs by the millions and releasing them into the American woods to start a new kind of defense. The way these wasps work is actually quite gruesome and sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. One specific type of wasp has the amazing ability to smell the beetle babies even when they are hidden deep under the thick bark of a tree. Once the wasp finds a target, it uses a long, needle-like tail called an ovipositor to poke through the solid wood. It then lays its own eggs directly inside the body of the beetle larva. When the wasp eggs hatch, the tiny wasp babies begin to eat the beetle from the inside out while it is still alive. While this is a very dark process, it is currently the best hope we have for saving the forest. So far, these wasps have been released in more than 30 states. The good news is that they are starting to survive the harsh winters and are spreading into new areas on their own. In some test areas, these wasps are already taking out up to 80% of the beetle population. This intense biological battle has led to some wild theories about what is really happening in our forests. One of the strangest ideas is that the ash trees are actually talking to the wasps. We already know that trees can send out chemical signals through the air or through underground fungal networks when they are under attack. Some people believe the ash trees have learned to send out a specific distress scent that acts like a 911 call for the wasps. In this theory, the tree is not just a victim. It is actively hiring a tiny army of bodyguards to eliminate the bugs eating its insides. If this is true, it means the forest has a much higher level of intelligence than we ever thought possible. It would mean the trees and the wasps are forming a secret alliance to wipe out the invaders. Another theory suggests that the emerald ash borer wasn't just a random accident. Some observers think the beetle might be acting as a nature reset button. This theory argues that North American forests had become too crowded with ash trees, making the ecosystem weak. By thinning out the old and weak trees, the beetle is forcing the forest to grow back with a more diverse mix of species. While it is hard to see the beauty in a dying forest, this idea suggests that the beetle is actually a tool nature is using to prepare the woods for a changing world. It suggests that in 100 years, the forests will be stronger and more resilient because this beetle forced them to change. Despite the success of the wasps, there is a major catch to this plan. Even if the wasps work perfectly, they might be too late to save the giant old-growth trees that define our landscape. These wasps are excellent at protecting the young, small ash trees that are just starting to grow back in the cleared areas. However, they usually cannot save a massive tree that is already full of thousands of hungry beetles. Because of this, the scientific goal is shifted. Experts are no longer trying to save every individual tree in the woods. Instead, they are trying to create a world where the beetle and the ash trees can live together in a balance. They want to lower the beetle numbers just enough so that at least some trees can reach old age and drop seeds. It is a very long game that could take a century to fully finish. Do you think we should keep releasing foreign wasps into our forests, or is that too risky? Have you seen any dead ash trees in your neighborhood lately? Tell us in the comments below. If you found this interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the wild world.